for. But this actually gives us a very fortunate time to have a guest as special as Watchwolf tonight. Won the Expedition Open, so big winner, qualified for Worlds, as we mentioned. Also has really interesting approach to the game. I really like your mentality. You and I have talked about that on air, off air about that. So why don't you kind of go over with us some thoughts about yourself, who you are, but then also sort of your approach to Magic, Eternal games in general, and how you succeed so well.
Yeah, so in no particular order. So, as people might know, I've played Magic for a number of years since I was 5 years old, and I'm turning 29 this year, as you can tell by the 92. So, games have been a large part of my life. I feel like it's made me a better test taker. Like just getting ready for a tournament is just like a test, and you can take them almost every weekend, or if you take ladder seriously, just all the time. And I've I haven't had necessarily the luxury of being able to train under someone that was just already very experienced. Much of my learning is, some amount of like being a little kid that's moderately successful and thinking I was just like a genius to being like smacked down and realizing I don't know anything about card games and then like building it from like the ground up. So a lot of my either like philosophies or understanding come from just hours of trial and error and just really trying to figure out what works with me. But one thing that I've always felt with both Magic and Eternal is that I always try to have a very healthy relationship with the game. If I feel like something's a grind, I just won't do it anymore. And I'm the person that for Magic tournaments and to try to be a pro Magic player for a number of years, which I was able to succeed for a few years, but I've sacrificed like 5 Mother's Days, like 7 birthdays, and like all these things that now that I'm older in my life and the rest of my family's getting older, I'm not willing to make those sacrifices anymore. But I'm trying to take the lessons from those to apply them to the future. So one thing that I think is very unconventional about my approach in Eternal is that I try to do a lot of work just by thinking and talking. And I don't believe that, for me at least, that playing matches is the most optimal use of my time. And unless if I'm having fun doing it,
Sure.
I don't think it's the best use of my time. And I don't think it generates the best results. So a lot of the times when I'm preparing for an event, I kind of just think through, um, like, what are the common situations that are going to happen. I don't get too down into the numbers. Like if you just tell me these are the top 3 decks, I don't actually care what percentage those are of the metagame, but still read the misplaced meta report. Like it's just my approach, but um, just the finer numbers don't necessarily matter to me because you're only playing one event once. You're not like playing one event multiple times. So there's just so much variance in everything that's going to happen that if you get too bogged down in certain details, it's not going to work out. So I try to focus more on just process building, and more than anything, every tournament I play in, I treasure that experience. Like not everyone has the luxury to be able to spend a weekend playing a card game competitively, and win or lose, I just have a blast being able to compete playing against some of the world's best. And I know I'm not there yet. Like I've never been the best Magic player and I never will be. I've never been the best Eternal player and I never will be. And that's okay. I'm just going to do the best I can every time. And like every single day one I've played, I just say like, wow, I really hope I top 64 because I made a ton of mistakes. Like I just want to be given another chance. Then once day two's over, I'm just like, all right, I made a bunch of mistakes. I'll just do better next tournament. And what one motto I kind of have for myself is, if I win, it's because I got lucky. I got lucky that none of my mistakes actually mattered because I pretty much never play a game where I didn't make a mistake. And every single loss, I lost because I made mistakes. So just everything is always a learning experience, and there's no reason to not like try to view them as such. One piece of advice I do have though is kind of tied to the feeling happy and enjoyment when you're playing Eternal, is that I think if you want to be a high competitive player, I don't think playing ladder or playing games of Eternal while heavily distracted is good for you. You kind of end up building bad habits, and your subconscious does a lot more than you might think in your decision making when you play card games. So just try to come up with a routine. Like it's okay to listen to music if that's how you practice and that's how you're gonna play the event. Just make sure you practice the way you actually would play. Like when I play on ladder, I do play some joke decks. I do just try out things randomly, but in the game on ladder, I am going to give it my all. Like I don't really try to concede early. I try to just treat it like I would day one of an open. So just
Yeah,
make sure
I totally agree with that. So something recently I've done, I know the mobile, both for Eternal and then, having Arena now on mobile, I've actually not really participated in that as much as I thought for that exact reason, where it's nice to have the convenience of mobile, but like if I'm out and I have my phone, I'm distracted. I'm doing other things. Like I've kind of made a rule for myself that like if I can't sit in front of my computer and focus on a match, then I shouldn't be playing. Like I don't want to be like, oh, pull my phone out for 5 minutes and try to get in a game, because I know I'm distracted and I know I'm not going to play it optimally. And so yeah, I totally agree. I kind of made that rule for myself that like unless I can focus on it and sit in front of a desk and play on my computer, I shouldn't be playing and wasting that time.
Yeah, one thing that's also pretty difficult is people say like, oh, submit your matches for like review and have better people look at it, or have other people like co-piloting with you. Part of the problem is there's still like a degree of, I don't want to call it pride per se, but it's just like self-confidence. Like if someone just keeps on telling you that all your plays are bad, even in the nicest way, you might get discouraged. You might not be the type of person that's tenacious and able to just like roll with the punches. So if you find yourself being that type of person, which probably 1 year ish in Magic for me, I was very much like that, where I thought that everything that came to me was just luck and I wasn't actually good at the game. What I did was I took out a notebook where, and you can use OBS to like record your own games and just play them back, and just every single decision point, and like be as critical of yourself as possible and just say like, okay, this was a mistake, this was why. And even if it's as simple as writing down the specific mistake, but eventually you can find a pattern if you just read them over and just say, okay, I find that when I play my insignias in my two faction deck, I just always think they come into play undepleted. So now when I get hit by Milos or like something that puts like, or if I play Silverblade Intrusion and put the Valkyrie Denouncer in my deck, I'm gonna like take out a post-it and write down like insignia and put like a huge like circle with a line through it or something. Like you just build processes, and I think what's made me a successful Magic player and a successful Eternal player is I just have a process that's very condensed. I think within maybe 5 hours I can do what a lot of people do in like 30 hours, because mine's like a very dense and dedicated. Like I don't think I'm particularly smart or smarter than other people. And I don't think like, I think I'm just very like tenacious and process driven. And at the end of the day I am kind of lazy. So I don't want to spend 5 hours, or I don't want to spend 30 hours. I'd rather spend the 5 hours and get the same result.
Use your time and your mental energy efficiently. I think there's a lot to respect about that. Our round is ready, so we'll hop down there in a second. But it made me think too of in the Queen's Gambit. I don't know if you've watched that or if anyone in the chat has, but when you said that, it makes me think of her picturing the chess moves on laying in bed at night and picturing moving pieces on the ceiling. It makes me think of you sitting there being like, all right, well, I can't play right now, but let me think about turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and how this is going to play out.
Yeah, like my draft open top 64, I actually play tested all the matches in my head for like 5 to 6 minutes, like before each of them, and actually changed my deck before each of them, and drew cards that were relevant that allowed me to win the games.
All right, well, thank you so much for that overview. I really appreciate it. I think that was very helpful, and I'm gonna clip this, and I'm gonna keep this VOD on YouTube as well, because I think there's a ton that people can learn from this. So thank you so much. But